You're listening to Reap So, dispatches from the front lines of food, farming, and the environment. I'm your host, Teresa Katsourelis. These days, our food system is dominated by industrial agribusiness and multinational corporations. But a surprising amount of the food we eat is still grown by small family farms. These scrappy operations produce about 20% of America's agricultural output, and they often struggle to get by. Nic Theisen and his wife Sara operate a bustling farm in northern Michigan. They grow flowers and vegetables with the help of a large team of farm workers. It's backbreaking work. The farm hardly makes a profit, and Nic's a little surprised he's doing this at all. Growing up, he thought farming was a terrible way to make a living, and it took a while for the work to win him over.
I call this whole project labor of mixed emotions. You know, it's not a labor of love. Sometimes it is a labor of absolute disgust. I cannot stand it. It is so hard, and I feel so downtrodden. Other times I'm just floating through the beauty and the luck of it all. Like, this is just, how is this happening?
Nic's story comes from our friends at Points North, a podcast about the land, water, and inhabitants of the Great Lakes. I'll let producer Morgan Springer take it from here.
One row, 2-foot spacing, every other dibble. You know, the tendency is to really spend a lot of time pampering, like tucking and patting, and just like, these plants want to live. They're gonna live.
So tell me a little bit about growing up, and did you think about farming?
Well, I thought about farming, and I thought it was terrible. It's true. My dad I'm just one generation removed from dairy farming. My dad grew up on a dairy farm in southeastern Wisconsin. I just saw farming as a terrible way to make a living, honestly. And I can remember my grandma saying, you know, Nic, farming is not a bad way to live. You're your own boss. You get to raise your own food. You get to live in the country. And I just didn't see it.
Was your grandmother right?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's funny. I sometimes wonder, do we have ancestral memory, or is there something in us that is deeper than our upbringing, for example? Like, is farming in my heritage? Because it's many generations deep, back to Europe. And I don't know the answer to that, but I feel very natural.
Nic went from thinking farming was terrible to actually farming after college. 15 years ago, he and his wife Sara started Loma Farm. It's in Traverse City, Michigan. Today at Loma, the sun is muted by clouds, and there's this light breeze. Farm workers are spread out across about 7 acres of land. They're planting carrots, cutting pea shoots, spreading compost. The farm's in a pretty ideal location. The region around Traverse City, Michigan is a huge tourist spot. And there's a thriving restaurant scene with lots of chefs using locally sourced food. Really, if any small farm could make it, this seems like a good spot. Nic says they started small and slowly scaled up. In those first few years, what was your feeling? Was it like, yeah, this is great, we've got it going?
No, we had one foot out the door, is the honest truth. And we resigned ourselves to the notion that if this project didn't work, it was our last effort at farming, and that we would find different professions. I was exhausted, very underpaid, very overworked.
On top of that, there aren't any guarantees that you'll even get a harvest. And there's one moment that really put the risk of farming into perspective for Nic. It happened before Loma Farm, back when he and his wife were farming in Colorado. It was late June, and the fields were full of vegetables.
And we had a 6-inch hailstorm. So hail on the ground, flowing down the road into the culverts, and it destroyed every single crop in the field. There wasn't a crop left. Nothing. Our full livelihood destroyed. And I still, to this day, if I hear thunder in the night or lightning, I'm instantly up and I'm instantly in panic mode. And I think that it honestly is, it's triggering. It's triggering a traumatic episode of extreme loss. And it's the first time that I realized how very vulnerable humans are.
Nic's struggle is not unique. Farming is hard, and numbers bear that truth. The number of farms has declined a ton in the U.S. At its peak in 1935, there were 6.8 million farms. Now it's less than 2 million. That info is from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Why do you think you've survived?
Frugality, I think, is the first reason we survived.
Nic says their personal expenses are small. They drive old vehicles, they live in a 700 square foot apartment in a pole barn, they eat a lot of the food they grow. He says they haven't really needed much money to make it.
I would never want to paint our life as destitute or in want of anything, because we weren't. I mean, these are choices, we're privileged people. We have college degrees and supportive families, and it's a hard way to make a little bit of money. And so frugality was number one, and then tenacity and just real extreme stubbornism. I mean, really, really, really stubborn. You are. Yes. Yeah, like I am going to win, It's like I'm fighting nothing, like this invisible force that makes it hard to make a living farming, and I am going to succeed. And I wanted to do it. I love food. I love land. I love this interaction. I just wanted to be more comfortable.
The Colorado hailstorm was a big moment. What's another, specific moment that you can remember, I don't know, that might have sent you to the calculator to figure out, what does this mean?
Yeah. I honestly, it feels constantly present, that idea of going to the calculator and okay, what is the reality of this moment in time? I can always feel it when we're spinning, when we're slipping a little bit. And then it's like a reaction. Do I have to put my sales hat on and get out and sell? Do I have to tighten the belt on labor? Is it a time to relax because the numbers are looking good? And the truth is the numbers never look great. The farm works, this is our 15th year with Loma. But yeah, the reality is that in farming, numbers are tight, especially on this small scale. It's a high labor, low margin profession with a lot of risks.
Do you think it should be that way?
I don't think it should be like that. I am a professional. I've spent over 2 decades developing these skills. And I don't mean this to sound braggadocious, but I just think farmers are very skilled. But we're nowhere near other professions in terms of compensation. And the risk to reward ratio is off. And so, I could compare myself to a plumber. Plumbers are making more and less vulnerable. And I could compare myself to a doctor, and people would chuckle at that. Well, a doctor went to school for 8 or 10 years. And I wholeheartedly believe that farming is every bit as hard as being a doctor. And the pay is nowhere near. And again, I don't want to emphasize the negative aspects of it, but it is at some points it feels like we're sacrificing our health as individuals for the community good. And at other times it feels like we're the luckiest ones there are. It's that same opposites are always present.
These days, the way to make a steady profit farming, it's not on a small farm like Loma. It's on a big one. A lot of that has to do with technological developments, like innovations in equipment, chemicals, and genetics. So instead of a lot of small farms that grow a bunch of different crops, there are more big farms that just grow a few crops. And these big farms are able to grow more food without increasing their overhead much. You know, some people don't care about small farms at all. You know, they're fine to have big agriculture and go to the grocery store and get their food. Like, why does it matter that the number of farms is declining?
I don't know. I think about this all the time. And it's so true that most people don't care. I wonder this sometimes. Can small farms feed the world? There's an argument that there's no way, We need big agriculture to feed the world. I don't know the answer to that. In my heart, I believe that small farms can feed the world, and I think could feed it better. I think they're important to the feel of a community. I think the preservation of landscape, I think the preservation of open space, I think reducing food mileage, I think it's a part of creating a nice place to live, keeping access to healthy and flavorful and fun to eat food. I think it's really important.
Things really changed for Nic and his wife, Sara, in 2020 when they started a new business with friends.
It just changed the whole game for us.
The business is called Farm Club. It's partially a restaurant surrounded by beautiful gardens and farmland. But Nic says it's really a farm first. About 90% of the vegetables and herbs on the restaurant menu, they come from the farm. They mill their grains at Farm Club, bake bread and brew beer, and they sell vegetables at the market there. Nic says when they started Farm Club, they didn't know if they would succeed, even though they're in a tourism hotspot. But really, all of the different ventures that make up the project are key.
And all of that is bringing way more money in. And that diversity and that value add is making this project successful, and not only successful, but truly thriving. And I couldn't feel more grateful for that, especially having gone through the trenches, to get here.
Okay, now we're in the Farm Club kitchen. On the menu are things like the farm board with veggies, bread, dipping sauces, cheeses, and meats. There's tempura fried garlic scapes, arugula salad with roasted beets, and pozole. Now, by just about any metric, Farm Club is a huge success. During the summer months, they hire about 80 workers to help the operation run. And the people come. They eat, they drink, they're merry. And a whole bunch of articles have been written about it, including in Bon Appetit. Is there any part of you that, feels sad? And I'm going to put this question in the framework of, the decline of the number of farms, but feels sad that thriving meant you couldn't just be a farm.
100%. Yes. Every single day I think, I do not want this farm to only exist because we have a full sail of Farm Club pulling this anchor along. And it doesn't. The farm is economically viable on its own. It's the lowest margin of any project that we're doing out of the bakery, market, brewery, restaurant, farm. But then at the same time, it is the very engine of the entire project. It is the food. I believe it is the buzz. I believe it is why people can taste the difference. The project to me, I think, is not sad, of course. I just love that about it. But short answer, yeah, I think it's sad that it's hard to make a living farming.
Do you still feel those, the mixture of emotions, or has it leveled out a little more?
I think it is still 100% a labor of mixed emotions. But I believe that most people's lives are that way. I think you can love something and despise it at the same time. And you just want to hope that you spend more time loving it.
Reap So is a production of the Food and Environment Reporting Network. Our executive producers are Theodore Ross, Tom Laskaway, and Brent Cunningham. Our sound engineer is Lauren Newsom. The video producer for Reap So is Katie Gardner. I'm your host, Teresa Katsoulis. Special thanks to Points North for their work on this episode. This story was produced by Morgan Springer and edited by Dan Wanchura. Additional editing by Michael Livingston, Ellie Katz, and Peter Payette. Points North is a production of Interlochen Public Radio. To listen to more stories from Points North, check them out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find out more about Fern and donate to support our independent nonprofit reporting at www.thefern.org.